What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick with Leverage Media, and welcome to another episode of Path to a Million podcast. I've got a new friend of mine today on the show, Dr. Patrick Hogg, joining us from across the pond. Dr. Patrick, say hello to the people.
Hey, guys.
So it's kind of funny. Patrick has a podcast that I think it's called Coffee with a Chiropractor.
Yeah, Coffee with the Chiropractor. Yeah, that's right.
And so my assistant has been reaching out to people with podcasts to have them on as a guest. And we've been doing it for like people that have podcasts that are for chiropractors. This one is for patients. So we ended up on this podcast kind of a roundabout way, but I'm excited to have you on because like listening to your story, I think that there could be a lot of value for especially for newer doctors that are just getting started, people that are buying practices. You've had a lot of success. So give me a little bit of a history, a quick history of your career. You started out as an associate, ended up moving away, coming back, and just tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of go through your stages.
Okay, so I guess it kind of all started when I was when I was a teenager. So my mum was diagnosed with bowel cancer when I was 17. So that's kind of when I started questioning what health was, when I started watching what medical doctors and stuff were doing as far as managing her and not really kind of offering any real alternatives. So when I started looking at degrees, I was looking at medicine in pretty much up until that point. And that was kind of a tipping point for me when I realized that actually I didn't really want to work like that. And I realized that it wasn't really in the interest, and I wanted to help people, not kind of keep people sick. So that for me was kind of that pivotal point when I found my first book on chiropractic, and I read the principles of chiropractic, and that's when I really decided that was for me. So I studied in a little town in the UK called Bournemouth. It's actually become a lot bigger now. So I studied there for 5 years. And from there, when I graduated, I moved down to Eastbourne, which is, funny enough, what we were just saying earlier, Nick, is where I'm currently practicing now. And I started in a practice as an associate. And honest to God, it was probably the worst job you could have ever imagined coming out of chiropractic school. I maybe saw one, maybe two new patients a week. I didn't take over a list. I was struggling to pay for my license insurance and cover the fees that I just basically forked out to go to university. And I just couldn't do it. So I moved to a clinic over in Brighton, which is about 45 minutes away from Eastbourne, and I took over a list there. I was seeing around 60 to 70, and I kind of grew the practice up to about 100, but I never kind of took over that 100 mark. I just seemed to have a ceiling in this practice, and the practice owner that I was with wasn't really interested in helping me grow. And so ironically, I went through a big personal development stage. I started doing a lot of personal soul searching and stuff like that. And I started meditation. And as soon as I started meditation, I ironically had an opportunity just fall into my lap where this guy had said that I was previously working for, he was just burning out and he couldn't run his practice anymore. And this was the practice that I'd previously been working in. And he'd grown it a little bit. It started getting a little bit of a reputation. It'd been running for about 5 years, but it just wasn't going anywhere for him. So he put this contract in my lap and said, look, I want rid of it. Do you want to come back and take over that practice? And I kind of looked at the numbers, and there was a lot of potential there, and the population in Eastbourne was growing by about 5% a year. And so I just went, do you know what? I'm not growing where I am. And this is kind of what I asked the world for. And ironically, it just fell into my lap. And here we are.
Yeah. Well, that's.
I'm on a podcast with you.
And, yeah, right. How long ago was it that you purchased the practice?
So just over 2 years. So
about like middle of 2019 is when you took it over. And then obviously COVID hits, 9 months after you buy the practice. So I'm sure that was a little bit of a
So I took.
Hold on, Patrick. Before we get into that, let's give me an idea. What was the practice seeing, or what was it collecting each year when you took it over? And start with that. Sorry.
So it was around the kind of 200 to 220 mark, but that's British pounds.
And what did you, if you don't mind sharing, you can tell me that you don't want to share it, but how much did you purchase the practice for?
We paid a year's turnover.
Say that again.
A year's turnover. So the annual turnover.
Oh, I got you. So
we agreed once all the finance and stuff was in it, and once we did done all the deductions, it was about 180.
I got it. Okay, got it. All right. So once you take it over, what was the thing that allowed? Because now you're just to give people an idea of how quickly you've grown. With half of the time that you've owned it, been in the middle of a pandemic. Where are you at now in terms of collections?
So we're currently collecting anywhere between really kind of, I think the worst month we've done in the last 6 months was 46,000, but our best is 65. So we're kind of grossing average around 700 a year.
That's great. And US, that's probably about $1 million practice.
Yeah, I think it would probably be just shy.
Got it. And the UK has been pretty tough in terms of the lockdowns and running the business. What has allowed you to continue to grow during that?
Well, ironically, being one of the only businesses that's been allowed to stay open.
Well, that always helps.
Which was a huge benefit because the economy's taken a huge hit. But from where the government have continued to give people 80% of their salary for sitting at home, people have still had cash, and a lot of people have been sitting at desks and whatever, and they're still. So we've been able to put adverts in front of people even easier than what we've been able to do before because everyone's locked to their mobile phone and their computer.
Yeah.
And so it's actually almost been easier for our digital presence to draw so many people in. So it's actually it's had a huge positive impact on our practice. But we've just kind of switched the way that we draw people in. We were discussing earlier, one of the tactics that we've been using, which has worked incredibly well for us, is we used to go out and do corporate screens or go to local shows and do screenings at shows and try and drag people in that way. But no, now what we do is we advertise that we're going to do a screening inside of the clinic. So we get someone to come out from the clinic into the building and then make them an offer. And that's been working incredibly well. I mean, we can do a weekend and we can generate 50 new patients in a weekend.
That's great. So when you do that, that's mainly having a Saturday where you've got the times available. People book those, they come in, and it's like a 15-minute appointment, I would imagine, where you're doing a little mini history, do the screening, set them up for a new patient exam.
Yeah, basically more or less. So we use a digital posture screen, and so we just do 2 quick snaps. We get them to fill out a really short questionnaire, and we have a short script that we use because obviously I use my associates to do that as well. And so it works incredibly well.
And how have you promoted it? Mainly just through Facebook ads, or have you done it promoted internally?
Yeah, we do promotions internally. So we do tend to have a holiday campaign. So we have little kind of campaigns that we do seasonally. So we use stuff like Halloween. We've used Christmas. We use Easter. We have a summer break, back to school. And so what we'll do is we'll kind of leverage the holidays that are already being leveraged anyway. Yeah. And we'll use those to promote in-house. And so say, for example, if you refer a friend in, there'll be a small discount for you, but there'll also be quite a good discount for your friend. And then we've got a little prize for someone that we draw out a hat at the end. So we've done stuff like iPads and hampers and dinners for 2. So when people refer a friend in, there's kind of an incentive there to want to share with your friends because it's almost become a little bit competitive that they want to win.
Nice.
We can sometimes get people sending 3 or 4 friends in just purely because they want to be the one that wins the prize at the end of it.
Yeah. So when you took it over, did you start, like, what did you change? Did you just basically add in new patient acquisition ideas and just started to generate new patients, whereas they weren't doing that before? Like, was that basically the biggest change?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So there was no digital presence whatsoever. There was no CRM systems implemented in the clinic at all. There was nothing like podcasts. They weren't really using folders for the reports. They weren't really using any merchandise or anything. So I mean, we don't do anything crazy. But at Christmas, we took little coffee cups with our logo on them in our branded colours, and we just got a load of bamboo coffee. They cost about £2 a cup, but we gave them to our top 200 clients with chocolates in for Christmas. But now every single time one of those clients potentially drops off of care, you know, if anything goes wrong, the first person they're going to think of is the person that's got their coffee cup sitting on their side.
Right.
So it's those little gems where you're planting seeds consistently planting seeds. That's what's made the biggest difference, because initially there was very little growth initially, and then all of a sudden those seeds that we've been planting, they erupted, and now, you know, you can't have a local person ask on a local page on Facebook without us being the first clinic to be mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing for people to understand, is that a lot of the strategies that will work, you're not going to see an immediate ROI on them. You may not even get an ROI on that specific thing. But when you add lots of them together and you're consistent with it, and you just, like, you probably think of it the same as I do, to where I don't even really like think about where people are coming from. It's more of like a global thing where I'm doing lots of different things, and who knows which way. I mean, yeah, let's track how people are coming in, but it's more important, I think, to like detach yourself from the results of it and just do it because you know it's what should be done, and be consistent with it.
Yeah. And you know, you ask yourself the question, what is a walk-in patient? Mm-hmm. You know, that person that goes, oh, I just walked past. Did you see the 6 Facebook adverts that we did? Right. And did you see our sign 6 times when you walked through town, umpteen number of times? And did you see the banner in the window? And has your mate spoken about us down the local cafe? Or have you ever heard someone talking? They talk about touch points, and ironically, the attention span on people is so short now. You need to make anywhere between 7 and 21 touch points with the customer before they'd even consider using your services. So, you know, most people are not going to see your advert once and go, "What? That's the one. That's the clinic I'm going to go to." Right. They need to see something anywhere between 7 and 21 times. At 21 times, to get something in front of someone before they go, actually, do you know what? My back does hurt. I'm going to go see this guy. Yeah.
And I think that it's important, because a lot of times people, like the general public, when they think of chiropractic, they think that they need to have a problem before they come in to see us. So you have to be planting those seeds long before they have the problem, so that when they do have the problem, they're reaching out to you versus just going to Google and typing in, you know, chiropractor near me. If they're doing that, it's like, yeah, you want to show up then too. But at that point, you're kind of just leaving it to chance. But if you've built your local brand, you're giving yourself the best chance of being the one that they seek out. Maybe they type in your name because they've heard of you enough at this point, you know? So it seems like you do a lot of like merging the offline and the online together. You mentioned before we jumped on here that you're doing a patient newsletter that you send out. Talk to me about some of those offline, because everybody talks about, you know, Facebook ads and Google ads and, you know, videos and whatnot. But talk to me about some of those offline strategies that you've utilized.
So with every seasonal campaign, there's always a voucher, and you have to put a voucher in someone's hand.
Right.
Like, props work. I don't care what anyone says. Props work. So say, for example, with Easter, we might put the voucher around a bar of chocolate, for example. With Valentine's, you might give a rose with the tag on it that's got a gift voucher on it for a friend. Just, you know, really stupid, but things that people will remember and things that people appreciate. So adding little props and perks in makes a huge difference. And it's those little things that will make you different to the guy around the corner. One thing that I know that I'm willing to do is that I'm willing to spend more than any of the other clinics in Eastbourne to get someone in through my door, because I know what a client is worth to me, so I know what the return is.
Yeah.
Other things that we'll do is we'll have like a full.
What do you real quick? What is like? What are you willing to spend to acquire a new patient?
So my lifetime value on a client's really around 800 pounds. So I mean, I would be willing to spend anywhere up to £100 to get a client there in front of me. Obviously, you wouldn't. You would try not to spend £100, but do you know what? I could quite comfortably turn around and say that that's what I would be happy to spend.
But that's I think knowing that math, though, you know, there's a lot of people out there that don't know what their lifetime value is, and if I asked them like, how much are you willing to spend to acquire a new patient, they wouldn't have an answer for that. And you know, people get, you know, they hear. I was just on a call with somebody that was talking about. He was saying like the average chiropractor gets leads for $14 to $21, you know, per lead, which I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what he, in his mind, he thinks about $20 a lead is what you should be paying. And it's like, yeah, like try to get $5, $10, $15, $20 leads. But if I told you that this patient for sure would start and your lifetime value is, you know, 800 pounds, then spending 12% of that to acquire them, that's just a math problem. That's a good deal.
Yeah. I mean, obviously your margins start changing when you've got associates, but the point is that
even then,
business grow, you have to inject the cash to be able to get the person through the door. It's not rocket science. Is that, you know, any really big business is injecting cash in it to grow faster so they can get more staff, and staffs are assets. If you manage them correctly, a staff is an asset. You can build a member of staff to be a patient generating machine, in the same sense that obviously paying cash out in advertising and merchandising, you know, like you said, we do newsletters. You know, we don't put any offer in there. There's no offers in there. We put a little section in there that says about how many referrals and stuff we've had this month, and I thank you for all the referrals and thank you for all the new patients. So people realize subconsciously that people do refer to our clinic. You know, little things, just stupid stuff like that, it just makes a huge difference, and it's just setting up the context for the person that sat in front of you or receiving the information.
How many new patients a month do you see right now?
So we can average anywhere between, it's really around, so about 15. I mean, it depends. We've got campaigns on. We'll see 30 to 40 in a week, but generally around kind of 80 a month. So that's 10 for me and 10 for my associate each week.
That's great. How many of those, like of the 80, how many would you say come from referrals? How many come from external? How many come from internal? Or I'm sorry, digital. Sorry, digital, external, internal.
Again, it depends on what campaigns that we've got going on. We haven't done an internal referral because we haven't done one because we've had no space. Right. I haven't got enough associates to create space. So realistically, a lot of our stuff has been digital more recently because it's a lot less work.
Sure.
But I have to admit, they're not the best patients. You'd actually be much better off doing the internal referrals than doing the onlines. You can get a lot of online bookings, but I tend to find their conversions are not as good.
Yeah.
But it's a lot less work to do an online one, so we go for the easy option.
It's a lot less upfront work. It's probably a lot heavier lift on the back end though.
But it's 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 a really even split for us because like you say, it's really difficult for us to measure because you might have people that come through our website because we've got loads of lead gen on our website. So we have, say, for example, like a 50% off button on our website, which someone would have to go in and leave their details in to qualify for the 50% off. And then we will say, for example, we might have a request a callback button, or we have a free back pain report, 10 ways to get rid of your back pain once and for all. But again, you have to give us your phone number and your email for us to send you the PDF, and same again for headache reports. And we've got so many different budget buttons and widgets on our page that will collect data. And so then we'll just enter them into the CRM, and so you never know really where they're coming from.
Right.
It's become very difficult for us to track because we have so many different avenues of new patients, and then someone just phones up and goes, "Oh, well, I've just heard of you." We haven't. You've been receiving our emails for the last 6 months because I can see your emails already in our CRM when we enter them into our practice software. Yeah. So it's difficult for me to say, but it's very even split. So maybe 30-30-30. So digital to like advertising to referrals. We get a lot of referrals, a lot.
Yeah.
I might have 3 or 4 referrals a week, which if I'm having 10 patients is around 30%.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of split you want, because that way you're not dependent. If you're wholly dependent on Facebook ads and Facebook starts to disintegrate, which it's in the US it's starting to feel that way. That if that's been your only way of generating new patients and that goes away, all of a sudden you're up a creek without a paddle, and that becomes a problem for the practice. So it's good to have those, and that way, if, a third, a third, and a third. If one of the thirds starts to not perform as well, you're not desperate to replace that. It's like you can start to try things, tinker with it, to find something that works, instead of all your eggs being in one basket.
Yeah.
So I think that the way that you're talking about it is the way that more offices really should be doing their marketing and thinking about marketing, is having the different fishing poles in the water, and just not always knowing where exactly they're coming from, and having those multiple touch points with local people. They start to feel like you're the only solution if they downloaded this and seen you at that and coming to the office for the screening. And it doesn't always have to be that you have to close them on the first interaction. You just need to be around. And if you're a young guy, if you're gonna be there for 20, 30, 40 years, you don't have to try to jump into bed on the first date kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's what my coach always says. You're not getting married. You're not getting married on the first date.
Yeah.
And he'll even say he'll prefer the patients that take longer to come and see him. He used to be the other way around, which we're all like that. I'm guilty of it. I always, when you're out there screening, you have a patient that's there and you're like, oh, I've almost got that one. But what did I do right at the end? But you almost want them to be warmed up. You want them warm before they come in. You want them to have read 100 of your emails. You want them to know the name of your kids, and that you have a dog, and that you like red wine, and whatever it is, whatever your quirks are, you'd be absolutely shocked how interested patients are about the stuff that's going on in your life. And it's almost like you're a sitcom for them. People's lives are boring,
right?
Really boring. So all of a sudden, to know something about someone else that they potentially see a lot in as well is also quite nice. So actually having an interaction with you, that's the main reason we have our emails, is absolutely nothing to do with educating patients. And I don't care what anybody says, patients don't care.
Right.
They don't.
Yeah.
They come to you for the advice, and they read your emails because they're interested about what you had for dinner last night.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you say you do weekly or bi-weekly? How often do you do emails?
So I don't do any of them, but I think they're still going twice a week. They should be going twice a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't run it because I have. That was one of the big things that I changed when I took over the clinic, because I expanded the team to have, like yourself, have more assistants doing those kinds of things for me. So I've not seen one of our adverts or our emails in the last six months.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at them.
Yeah. And
they're on.
You're planning on bringing on more associates as well. Are you planning on backing out of the side of it and just like being the CEO, or
that would be the ideal world. One of the biggest problems that we have in the UK is associates are like gold dust. There's like pixie dust. It's something that there are not a lot of. So I've already interviewed about 5 associates this year, and all of them have multitudes of offers. And so one of the big issues that we have as a little clinic in a seaside town is that we're not as attractive as we were saying earlier, places like Brighton and London, and these big places at Birmingham, big cities that people want to go and live in, especially new grads. They want to go and live in. And ironically, in this country, the margins are so good. You can be really bad at business as a chiropractor and you can still make money. That's the way it works in the UK. You can be a terrible business model and you can still make money.
Yeah.
It's sad to say, because it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't be bad at your job and still get away with it. But because of the margins and the way that things work, people do.
What's the average associate make in UK?
My first year out of college was around 50K. So what's that in American? 75?
70, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then in my second year, it went up to about 60. But the average can be anywhere from, my associate currently, she gets paid about 70.
Yeah. That's pretty good. That's a good living for an associate.
For 25 hours a week, yeah.
You have 25 hours a week, even better.
Yeah, brilliant.
So tell me a little bit. So the reason why we ended up on this call is because you're doing a podcast. You're doing it for patients. Yep. Tell me a little bit about that, because I don't run into that many offices that are at least successfully doing a podcast. So what's worked, what hasn't, what have you learned? How's that going?
So the idea of the podcast is really, it's for one thing and one thing only, because a lot of people won't listen to it. Mm-hmm. We get maybe 60 to 70 listens per podcast. Yeah. We've had some that are more, some that are less. But considering it's for our practice users and it's only for people that are on our CRM, to get 70 listens per podcast is pretty good going.
Sure.
It's like I say, it's a social standing, and for one of those things that basically reinforces me. It's also an ironic thing with what I've learned with running a business is that if you don't offer the thing, someone wants it. But if you have it there, then nobody listens to it, but they'll come to you more likely than the guy around the corner.
Right.
So the podcast works because people open it and they go, oh, this guy runs a podcast.
Yeah, that must mean.
I have no idea how much, and I do know that certain clients come in and they do listen to it because they come through the door and they go, oh, I was listening to so-and-so, and that guy that you interviewed the other week was really, really interesting. So I did a really good interview with Keith Wassam. I don't know, because he's from the States, and he had like a near-death experience. He ended up finding chiropractic, and now he's not actually a chiropractor himself, but he does all the marketing for chiropractors. I know he does a lot of work over in the States. And I had someone like him on the show, and we get people come in and, oh, that story that you were telling last week was really, really inspiring. And so it does work. It does work because people do listen to it. They do take an interest. Does educate, and it increases the value. The ones that listen to it, their value is much, 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 much higher. However, it's getting someone to listen to it. So we embed it in our emails. And I use the content from my YouTube channel, and I'll make podcasts from my YouTube videos, which I take my YouTube videos from my Facebook channel, and I just basically recycle content. I use the same content across 5 different platforms and just make the same video into 5 or 6 different things, because different people will listen to media in different places.
Yeah. Yeah, same way with this. We'll push this out on Facebook. It'll live on YouTube, and it'll be a podcast. And I would say that one of the best ways that people find me for leverage media is through the podcast, because it's something that you passively consume. And again, I think you're right. I think that my listeners tend to actually listen to the podcast, but it is like a social standing, especially like in a local business. There aren't a lot of people locally that have their own podcast. So you having one sets you apart in some way from everybody else in town, and especially in the U.S. where there's 3 chiropractors on every corner. You've got to make sure that you've got something that makes you stand out. And they may not listen to it every time. Like maybe they're not like waiting with bated breath for your new podcast episode, but they may go back and listen to 10 of them before they decide to give you a call.
Yeah, and it's going back to those touch points again, 7 to 21 touch points.
Exactly.
And again, it goes back to how many different ways can you attract clients through the door? Because like you say, the worst number of business is 1. Because if that source dries up, I want to know that I've got other avenues. And could I do my podcast better? Yep.
Right.
Could I do my YouTube channel better? Yep. Could I do a lot of things better? Yep. But do I do it better than everyone else in my town? Yep. Because I'm the only one that friggin' does it.
Right.
Which means that I can be god awful at the thing and I can still be better than everyone else.
Exactly.
Great.
That's the thing, is like sometimes we compare ourselves to like, because we know other chiropractors that are doing something, and like you're in a coaching group and maybe somebody in the coaching group is like crushing it and you feel like you're not doing it as well because you're not doing it as well as them. But you're doing it better than everybody else that you're actually competing with. And that's really all that ends up mattering, and YouTube is a good example of this. Chiropractors see other chiropractors on YouTube, and they've got 10 million views on this video, and they've got 1 million followers, and they're selling merch and blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's not going to be you. Like, there's very little chance that you're going to do that, and you're going to learn all the things that they learned and do all the things that they do, have the personality that they have. But what you can do is have a YouTube channel to where if somebody in your local town is doing some research on you and they find your YouTube channel and they can watch 20 videos on a Saturday afternoon, and then they can go and schedule an appointment on your website, that's a good use of your YouTube channel. Trying to get views from people that don't live in your city is, you're just going to be kind of like chasing yourself around the block.
Wow. Unless you're Joe Cipriani and he's got a map in his office of where everyone's flown across the globe to see it.
Yeah, but that's the guy, that's the guy that, probably has the most views on YouTube. Yeah, but again, like he is a unique individual that has like, it was good timing, personality, where he lives, blah, blah, blah. You're probably not going to replicate. You're not going to replicate that. So don't unless you want to, because I guarantee when I look at his stuff, I can tell that he has gotten a lot of advanced training on how to do YouTube to show up as like a national brand versus a local chiropractor. Like when I've actually done a couple of strategy sessions with people in Greenville where he practices at, and he really doesn't even show up that well as like a local chiropractor. But on YouTube, if you're looking for, loud chiropractic cracks, like he's going to be the guy that has 3 of the top, him, Greg Johnson, and a couple other offices are going to be the ones that show up. But there's only so much room for those. And unless that is just like your passion in life, you're never going to spend the time necessary to do it. So what you should be doing is just trying to be there when somebody in your local area is looking for a chiropractor. They do some research, they find you, they go to your YouTube channel, they watch some videos, and they feel good about, making the appointment. So that was a long diatribe about YouTube, but So anything else, Patrick, that we haven't covered that you think would be helpful to the listeners, especially like some of those younger docs that are trying to grow and grow fast?
I mean, I think realistically, the most important thing is, and we've touched upon it already, is knowing what a customer is worth to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't know your numbers, then you just don't know what it's worth spending on.
Yep.
And what the best avenues, because people will quite often say this. They'll go, I could pay $10 a client this way, and I could pay $20 a client this way. Which way would you go? The $10 way. But it shouldn't be. It should always be both.
Yeah.
It should always be both. And knowing what your lifetime value is and your PVA is, and knowing what your average adjusting fee is, then you can start to work out what these things actually are. And this was a big learning curve for me, because like you say, I've only owned practice for 2 years and we've trebled it. And to do that in that period of time, like you say, during a lockdown, we had to use multiples. But the only way I would have done that, sorry, one of my patients is shouting through the window.
No worries.
And so the only way I would have done that is if I knew my numbers. There would have been no way of doing it if I didn't know my numbers. Absolutely zero.
It's almost like you should run it like a business and know your numbers like a business person would.
I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why.
Well, Patrick, I'm glad that we ended up on this call, and I think that we are kindred spirits when it comes to marketing your practice the right way. And I really appreciate you sharing all your expertise. And when I am in Brighton, I will definitely stop by and say hello.
That's fine, man. I'll have to. Yeah, we'll have to find a. Well, you just have to be careful in Brighton that you don't end up in the wrong bar.
Fair enough. I'll let you. I'll let you show me the way.
You know what Brighton's famous for, right?
I do not know.
Oh, it's the most one of the most liberal cities in the UK.
Fair enough.
So it's big on the LGBT, so the lesbian, gay, bisexual community. So we'll make sure you choose the right bar.
Well, it just depends on like what you're looking for and the right bar.
Where your clients are coming from, eh?
That's right. All right, Patrick. Well, I appreciate your time, and we will see you on the next episode.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Patrick.